Now, hello, welcome along to this week's edition of the Clare Champion Sport Chat podcast. We have succumbed to all the requests, as you can see here in studio this evening, to bring our football guru back in. He's there for all those fans that were looking for him. It's Joe Garry, live and in the flesh. Joe, welcome back.
Got him in Margaret.
Yeah, are you glad the fan requests came in?
One request.
Yes, but as long as there's only one, we can confidently say it was your biggest fan.
Biggest fan, yes.
Yeah, football obviously the focus tonight, both in terms of men's and ladies as well. Huge day of action in Doonbeg on Sunday, and on Friday night Doonbeg themselves claiming that Junior A title, and obviously we're now down to semi-final stage in the senior and intermediate football championships as well. Joe, that's where we'll start. The final four. Firstly, before I asked the question, was it the final four that we would have picked? Just an interesting stat that came up when I was just looking back over some records there. Maybe it's apt that these are the four teams that are finishing off this decade, because they are the four teams that have won championships since 2010 in Doonbeg, Kilmurray, Brecon, Cratloe and Milltown. Are they the four we would have picked at the start of the year?
Well, I think anyone who would have come up with those four, we should deserve a big round of applause, because I don't think, in fairness, and we all know the pedigree that Doonbeg have had, I don't think many had opted for Doonbeg. Now, a couple of things went in their favour, granted, but still they stuck in, and we saw that against Clare in the championship, in a Steinman game as well. In a Steinman had, comfortable victory over Clare, whereas Doonbeg made them fight every step of the way. They they were a man down against Clare and still hung in there to get through, albeit they didn't win the game. Same the last day, didn't win at a normal time, but eventually got through, and they're on merit, nobody can argue with that.
Tradition plays such a part, doesn't it? And even talking to some people that were at the game, they said the Doonbeg people around them were just buoyed by the whole thing. This was their kind of glass ceiling almost for the last couple of years, getting back to the last four and putting pride back into it as well.
Well, yes, I think Doonbeg always play with pride. There's no doubt or question about that. They're a traditional football club. They wear their heart on the sleeve. They make no apologies to anybody. They would have one of the most committed panels in the county. And when it was put up to them, Rogue, we all expected had plenty of ability, but as yet was unproven senior championship ability, and maybe therein lies the rub. The proven winners of Doonbeg, they came good when they needed most. They answered the call, and now they're back into semi-final. Probably ranked 4th out of 4. But that won't bother them one little bit. They're back in the semi-final, only 1 hour away from a county final.
Yeah, and just for people that may not have heard at this stage, obviously it's Doonbeg versus Milltown in that semi-final, and then Kilmurray Brecon versus Cratloe. That in itself a great rivalry, I guess, of the later part of the decade. They've made in semi-finals and finals, and I suppose just to go back to the Doonbeg side of things, Peter, and the team they're facing in Milltown, champions back into the last four, but have they done it in the swashbuckling way that we may have expected them to?
I don't. They haven't, but they're still there. And people often say that you learn from losing. I always think you learn a lot more from winning, but maybe not playing quite to the level that you're capable of. And Milltown, the main thing for them is to, they've already won the Keys Cup. The main thing for them, get to the semi-final of the championship without too much bother. And largely they have done that. I don't think they were against Kilmurray they were probably under a bit of threat, in fairness, but they still ended up winning, I think, by about 4 points. The last day then, the first half the conditions got worse as the game wore on. They kicked some great points from distance. Conor Cleary, a couple of great scores, Owen Cleary as well, but probably don't look quite as fluid as they have done in previous seasons, but still look very solid defensively. And they're very hard to break down. It's going to take a really good performance from Doonbeg or Cratloe or Kilmurray if Milltown win the semi-final to beat them.
As a manager, Joe, is that how you'd like to hit a semi-final, knowing that there's another maybe 30% in the tank to come?
Oh, without question. Dob has them where he wants them now. There's no player on the team that can rest on their laurels. Even the players like Gordon Kelly and these players that lead the team, they'll demand more from everyone around them, and the challenges are getting harder every time. Up against the Doonbeg side now, they'll be buoyed by that marvellous win at the weekend, but they have a panel of players that I think is unmatched in Clare football at the moment, and they're not afraid to use them. So it's up to each and every player to cement their place, because one poor performance, the next day out might mean that you won't see action in the county final if they get through. They hold all the aces at the moment going in, but they will not take Doonbeg one bit for granted, and therein, I suppose, lies the beauty of this next semi-final.
Yeah, and I guess the venue could probably play a part here as well. We're led to believe that both are going to be on in Cusack Park. Well, certainly Kilmurray and Cratloe will, and the word is that Milltown and Doonbeg will too. So would legs come into it? That's not to be disparaging in terms of Donegal, but I mean just, I suppose, the pace more so than anything in terms of that Milltown.
Well, I'm quite sure it was Milltown's first choice, Páirc Uí Chaoimh, whereas it wouldn't be Donegal's first choice. And you can understand why Donegal, will make a battle of it. They need to make a battle of this, because if it's a high scoring game, even though, the score last week Donegal kicked up was most impressive, if it's a high scoring game, I think it favours Milltown. Whereas Donegal can get stuck into it, make a right battle of it, and then the experience of Pádraig Ahern and Enda Doyle and Colm Dillon and all these boys come into play in a big way. So right now, Cusack Park is what Dob would have looked for. That's what he would have wanted. That has worked for him, and the other part of it now is getting everybody fit and ready, and the same will apply to Donegal. I think they had a player off for suspension the last day. They should have a full strength squad, and it'll be a traditional Milltown Donegal derby.
Yeah, and the other game then, as you mentioned, Peter, that rivalry over the last 5 to 6 years in particular, Kilmurray versus Cratloe. Cratloe, are they looking at the moment the team that are maybe most impressive in terms of form in the championship?
Yeah, I think Cratloe have the best set of forwards if they're let play. If they get space inside in Cusack Park, or to be fair, if they get space anywhere, they're very hard to stop. I suppose this rivalry has been going on now the best part of 10 years, I'd say, at this stage. They've had some great games. Remember out in Lissycasey, I can't remember the exact year, around 2011, I'd say. I think it went to a replay outside in Lissycasey, and it was, again, the likes of Colin McInerney at that stage, Paul Collins, they were all in their late teens at that point. They've massive experience behind them since then. And the thing about Cratloe is they don't have to play well even for the entire 60 minutes. They can do it in bursts. There's times they start slowly, they don't get straight into the game, but that might work against another team who might maybe not have the same experience or the same level of ability. That a poor start might derail them, but it doesn't derail Cratloe, because they just have so much confidence in themselves, I suppose, and confidence in their own ability individually as well. Really looking forward to this game, because I think Kilmurray will look at it. They look at trying to close down Cratloe, and Aidan Horse-Maloney will know how to do that, and he'll have the I suppose the tactical insight to be able to get that across to his players. Can his players then put that into action? I can't wait for that one, to be honest.
Yeah, just for anyone who's wondering, and I just spotted as Peter was talking, there's no subliminal messages being sent here with the colours of the microphones, by the way. It's a complete coincidence, the green and red. We'll try and get maybe more neutral ones.
Garry has the black one.
Garry has the black. Yeah, but that suits him down to the ground. But just we'll try and get more neutral ones maybe for the next day. On Kilmurray, Joe, back into the last four. Did what they had to do, I guess, in a sense, against Clonmel, have been doing what they've had to do all year, perhaps. And again, maybe another team that have a little bit more on the time to give.
Without question, the most experienced panel of players left. I know they have a lot of young lads staying, but they have lads that have won championships for fun down through the years. Cusack Park won't daunt them. I think it's Cratloe's fourth game on the bounce in the park, so that would hold an edge against many teams, but not for Kilmurray. They're home from home there, and I think Cratloe will still be smarting from that defeat 2 or 3 years ago. Cratloe should have seen out the game. A late goal, I think it was by Niall Hickey that got it extra time, and then they went on. Peter Dwyer, if you remember, kicked a mighty point to win it. But they'll be smarting. They had that game won really, and they will feel that they have to put that one to bed. But Kilmurray bring a huge amount of experience, a huge amount of game management know-how into it, and of all the teams in Clare that are set up for Cratloe, Kilmurray won't fear them one little bit. So I mean, we would have all liked maybe a Kilmurray Milltown game. We've been looking for it for a couple of years. The gods have dictated that it's not going to happen at this stage yet, but who's to say it mightn't yet happen in a final placing. But right now, Cratloe, I think, carry a bit of better form into it. Milltown or Kilmurray have been we've seen patches of what they can do, but generally as a more experienced team go on, they get better, and I would expect them to have that should be a huge clash. Yeah,
we'll have loads of build-up obviously in next week's paper to those semi-finals, so stay tuned for that. We'll go to the intermediate and maybe leave this fella out of it, because all we'll get is one game at a time and all those kind of cliches that managers trot out. About the intermediate pairings, if you haven't heard as well, St. Brickens versus Dora Bearfield, and then a lovely estuary derby between Kildysart and Shannon Gales, and your man is straight in here beside you now, as we call that one out. 4 very evenly balanced teams, Joe, I think it's fair to say at this stage, in what has been a very impressive and even and competitive championship.
And that's the benefit of bringing down the 5 teams last year. It's made you hugely competitive, and we've been saying it all year that whoever team will come out of it will be in good nick going into senior football. At the moment, you would think that St. Brackens and Kildysart are the 2 standout teams for me. Shannon Gales, I didn't see much of their action. I saw their goal. It has to go down as, you know, one of the most fortunate goals the last step, which really, you know, put them in the driving seat, because it was a soft enough goal for Coolmeen to concede. But nevertheless, they obviously kicked up the scores they needed to kick up there back into a semi-final. And in a derby game, it's 50-50. You know, the Gales traditionally would have been able for Kildysart. Kildysart were in the final last year, felt they could have won it, but that'll be a real ding-dong derby. And then you have 2 teams that have come down from senior on the other side, so you know, it has nicely ended a championship that has been hugely competitive.
And I suppose going forward, I mean, we've often spoken about perhaps maybe let's call it the Kerry model, whereby if a Clare intermediate champion meets a Kerry intermediate champion, you had been talking about what, number 17 versus number 9 in terms of rankings. I mean, that has been evened out a little bit, and you only have to look at Kilrush last year running a very good Kilcummin team very close in the intermediate, so you'd be hoping that can kick on beyond our own championship here as well.
Well, we had it for a couple of years. There was intermediate championship matches in Clare that were conceded by walkover, and that's no help to anybody. So, you know, you have to get a situation where every game is earned. And if you look at the relegation decider now, Avon, who were fancied by a lot of people to come out of that group, are now in a relegation final against the loser of Liscan or Kilkee. So, you know, it just shows you how competitive the intermediate has become, and it will stand to whatever team comes out of it. So I think that in relation to, it's still not evenly balanced. You know, we're still looking at team number 13 coming out of Clare as team number 9 coming out of Kerry, but even that's so the team that will come out this year will be much better prepared.
And Peter, you've seen obviously in your role as a Shannon Gales coach this year, like you'd have seen a good number of games, I'm sure, as well. Have you noticed a big increase in terms of not the quality of football, because that's always there in fairness, but the competitiveness, I guess, of the games more so?
Yeah, every game that I've seen has been largely competitive. Certainly, any game we've been involved in has been. And the thing that I like about a lot of the teams that are still involved in championship, they have a lot of good young players. You know, Brackens have some very good young forwards. I think Kildysart have them as well. You know, they have a nice mixture of. They've put the work in. You know, Brackens have, Kildysart have. Most clubs are producing fairly good young players. They were Bearfield, Shannon Gales as well. And I think it must be great for the people involved at underage in those clubs to see, you know, those younger players coming through at 17, 18, 19 and actually really able to kind of compete. And that's, you know, if you were involved with a county team, and I think there's a good bit of talent around, you know, I think there's a lot of players there with good attitudes, you know, who kind of listen and are able to visibly improve and are bringing through, kind of have been well coached at underage level. And I think another kind of aspect of that as well is a lot of the clubs at underage are joined. I mean, you know, Kildysart have been joined with Coolmeen for a good number of years. They've always been quite competitive. Shannon Gales, Kilmahill have been joined now for a good few years too, playing at A and B. Whereas if we were on our own, you know, you'd be playing probably Division 3, maybe, you know, if that. So I think that you can see, you know, when you can see that these underage amalgamations are actually producing players that can compete at adult level, I think it's a good sign for whoever comes out.
Yeah, it kind of leads into a discussion we're going to have in a few moments. We're taking a very quick break in just a couple of minutes' time, but we'll be having that senior amalgamation discussion in the second half of the podcast and talking about the ladies' finals as well. But just, I suppose, on a larger scale, Joe, that amalgamation, I mean, you look at the under-21 football, which is due to start in the next couple of weeks as well. I think there's maybe 5 of the teams competing in A that are, you know, joined in some way, shape or form. Some have 3, some have 2. It's kind of a pathway to the future, isn't it, if your 21 championship is going that way? Well,
without question, and I think you just have to look at the numbers, and you go right back down to national schools and you see what's happening there. So, you know, I think it's for the future, and irrespective of whether clubs amalgamate or not, I think teams have to simply look at training together, because the numbers aren't there, and it's now becoming commonplace to hear that with a good crowd of training with 12 or 11 or 10. And unfortunately, that's the way things are in the west of Ireland at the moment, and clubs have to look beyond the box now and try and see can they find remedies to encourage people to keep playing, because teams that had 3 clubs that had 3 teams are now suffering, doing well to field 2. Teams that had 2 are gone down to 1, and some clubs that have only 1 team are struggling big time as well to keep it on the road. So it's certainly the blueprint for the future.
Yeah, and I suppose just on that, I mean, there was one intermediate relegation semi-final that would have put up red flags on Saturday when you see Kilkee and the Scanner, who would have been winning championships less than a decade ago, or maybe a bit with it, and here they are now trying to hold on to the second tier. Like, that's some turnaround.
Not only hold on to the second tier, but hold on to their team.
Well, sorry, second tier, I meant, isn't there? Second tier,
but the second tier, not only holding on to that, but holding on to their team, their very existence, because that's sadly what it's at. And trying to get numbers, I don't know what numbers are like at training. Kilkee lost their management before the intermediate championship began. I'm sure that was numbers related as well, and it's just that the numbers are so sparse, and clubs have to come up with ways and means now of trying to attract players to stay playing the game. Because a lot of those clubs are depending on people that are, a lot nearer to 40 than they are to 30 and maybe beyond it. And that's the way things are at the present.
Yeah, I can see Peter's wound up with a contribution there. Just hold it for a second, just press pause, because that's what we're going to do just for a very quick minute. We'll get right back into that discussion along with the ladies' football. Don't go anywhere. So as you can see here, Clare Champion editor Peter O'Connell is in studio, and this is how he looks most days. I say most days, this is a good day for him. The hair is gelled and the whole lot. But in a couple of weeks' time, it's going to be a very, very different Peter O'Connell that you'll be seeing in the Woodstock Hotel for a very good and great cause as well, obviously, as well. Peter, I'll let you explain what I'm rambling on about.
Right, I'm going to be dressing up as Amy Winehouse, which might come as a surprise.
The sad thing is not
some
really.
People. It's the now annual Dainty Daisies. I think this is year 7 of it, where they raise funds for Midwest Red Crisis. There's 12 people, 12 men have been kind of, how would I put it politely?
Jumped at the opportunity.
Have been persuaded to get involved. So that's what's happening. It's on the Friday the 4th of October in Hotel Woodstock. Tickets are available either online, or I have them myself, and all the people involved have tickets as well that they're trying to sell. Most people as well are organising some kind of fundraisers. Eamon Keane, also from Kimmeray McMahon, he's a Dainty Daisy as well. He's dressing up as Marilyn Monroe again. He's dressed up a few times as Marilyn now.
Sorry, again?
According to Mary, his wife. So,
okay. We need to get a chat with Lorraine to see how many times Peter has done this at home.
This is the first. But anyway, myself and Eamon are having a quiz in Murty Brown's pub in Tullycrine this Friday night. 9 o'clock, Tullycrine time.
So there's a very big ish, I think. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So probably, maybe closer to 9:30. But anyway, teams of 3. Tenner per person, and again, it's we kind of decided we had to do some kind of a fundraiser. So myself and Eamon said that if we have a quiz and the two of us organise it, and if no one turns up, we can
safety in numbers.
Yeah, safety in numbers.
Yeah.
We'll have a few spot prizes for a raffle and things like that as well. So hopefully we'll raise a bit of money, because it is genuinely very, very important that we all do, and that it's the big fundraiser for Midwest Red Crisis, and we'll be doing everything we can, all 12 people involved, to try and raise as much as we can.
How much preparatory work goes into this, Peter? I mean, are we going full wax?
Well, actually, speaking of waxing, there will be a bit of that going on as well.
Nice segue there.
On Thursday, this Thursday, in the Clare Champion office. We're doing a bit of leg waxing now. There was a bit of clarity required from a number of people who work for the Clare Champion as to what exactly was going to be waxed, just the legs. Eamon Keane is also going to be waxed as well. I told Keane that it was on and that he was in for it, and he went a bit silent, I have to say, on the phone, but then eventually agreed that to come in. So we'll be trying to raise a bit of money that way as well. I think everyone has to do on the night itself in Hotel Woodstock. Everyone has to do a lip sync. So I don't know about that now, but we'll give it a go.
I think between waxing your legs now, Peter, and hosting a table quiz, it's not the worst thing you're going to have to do, is it?
The lip sync is going to be interesting, but I think we have to do a bit of practice or something like that, to make sure that we don't make complete fools out of ourselves. But anyway, it's for a very good cause, and I just hope everyone raises a bit of money, and that's the main thing.
Absolutely. So if you want to tear strips off the Clare Champion editor for one reason or another, head into the office here on Thursday. From what time, Peter? And can people just like walk in at any stage of the day and demand to tear a strip off?
No. If they want to, well, that happens a lot anyway. But if they want to really tear a strip, they can. They can come in at 12 o'clock on Thursday, but they have to pay for it, like tenner per strip. And buy
a Clare Champion while they're here as well.
And buy a Clare Champion. That's $12.50 in total. So
there we go. So you wouldn't have thought of it now for that. So 12 o'clock here on Thursday in the Clare Champion offices, 9 o'clock ish on Friday evening, and very much it will be on time, I'd imagine, with Mary Howard running it at Hotel Woodstock for the Dainty Daisies event on October 4th. Peter, nice to see you like this, and we look forward to seeing you Friday morning. I'd say it'll be fun.
Thanks a lot, Derrick. Thanks a lot.
Now, welcome back to this week's Clare Champion Sports Chat podcast. As you can see, still joined in studio by the star of the attraction, Joe Garry, and Clare Champion editor as well, Peter O'Connell. Talking the break, we just touched on the future roadmap maybe for Clare football in terms of amalgamations, and obviously this year, Joe, we saw a first in terms of the Navone O'Curry's amalgamation coming up to play senior. You were manager of that along with Dermot Galvin as well as coach, and Johnny Daly. First of all, have you sat down to reflect on it, or what's the thinking on how it went?
Well, I think the overall view is is a positive one. The players want to play it, and that I think is going to lead for amalgamations the success forward, because there'll be player demanded and player led. The players wanted to play senior championship. They understood there would be 2 matches every weekend. There was no question or doubt about that. No one called on and complaining about that. They got on with it. They trained together only 5 times since we went in July. But at each occasion there was 24, 26, 28 at training. And, accounted for themselves very well in the championship. We would have felt we could have won a game or 2 in it, but as it happens, we didn't. Kilrush deservedly won game 1, even though it last 2 or 3 minutes it was decided for. And Kilmahal then beat us by 3 points in round 2. The third game against Miltown had rested a good few players, and the amalgamation were down a few, but it was again an entertaining game, very competitive game, which finished level. So there's a lot of positivity from it, and I think it's something the players back west, now that O'Curry's are not going to be taking the intermediate title, we'll look at it again next year, and other clubs around the county are looking at them for, to see can it be done. I think the answer is very firmly yes.
There seems to be a train of thought out there. I know we've spoken often about this in terms of trying to marry the amalgamation side of things with the club side of things. We know there was that relegation discussion, and that's probably going to go on as well. And a feeling perhaps that maybe was there a few things that weren't ironed out in what we call the administrative side of it from board level before they started, that might just maybe make it a little bit easier for everybody in the future.
Yeah, well, I think that's down to officialdom really. I think it's a matter of the players want to do it. The players don't see any issue with playing 2 games a weekend. And that is really the kernel of the issue, because once you accept that and you get on with it, there's no reason why amalgamations, when we brought down the teams as part of the football review down to 12, it was with a view to bringing it back up. Remember, the favourite system by everybody in the county was 8 on 8, what presently exists in hurling, what used to exist in football. And hopefully we will get back up there, because the players that are capable of playing senior championships should be given the opportunity to do that. And we've often used the examples of Cathal O'Connor and Kevin Harnett, 2 lads I coached myself for the county team, might not get a position, get an opportunity to kick senior football in the county, and that's a terrible shame.
We've spoken already, Peter, about numbers being low and all that, but I don't know, the thing of playing 2 games a weekend, that only maybe heightens the risk of injury, the risk of burnout, the risk of fatigue. And if numbers are low already, is that impacting on it? Like, do we need to look, I know we've spoken before about midweek fixtures, do you need to look at splitting it up that way, where the amalgamations might play on a Wednesday night or something, and just try and break it up a little bit more?
Yeah, I do. I just think it's playing on successive days is a massive draw. Particularly if you're an intermediate or a junior club. Whether you're an inter-county player like Cathal O'Connor, or you're a club player who would love the opportunity to play a senior, your first kind of loyalty is always to your own club in terms of either intermediate or junior championship. And then okay, so your own club will play on the Saturday, and the following day then you play with the amalgamation, and there's no doubt the players will give everything to the amalgamation, but sometimes it mightn't be just physically possible for a player to play at their optimum level on successive days. And I don't know, is there some way around that? Could you, as you said, maybe is a Wednesday evening
I don't
feasible?
think the Wednesday night is feasible.
Friday.
You have a lot of clubs that have maybe 3 and 4 players around during the week, so it's not an option at the moment. Ideally, it would certainly work. Ideally, a Friday night would certainly work. But for the club championship player, the intermediate player, the opposition who are playing on their championship, they deserve that game on a Saturday, which is fully understandable, and it's up to the amalgamation then to be accommodated. That they go out on the Sunday. In certain circumstances, if you're meeting a club that are involved in another amalgamation, then by all means, it would make sense to play it on a Friday night. But right now, I think it's doable. You have players that are well into their 30s playing, particularly from the O'Curry's club, that lined out, played the 2 games, not a word out of them, got on with it straight away, and more than held their own in those games, as people will testify. So, I don't think it's a huge issue. It should not be the issue to knock it. The players want it. We think nothing of Nemo Rangers won a semi-final 2 or 3 years ago. They played a divisional team in the semi-final of the championship, won it by 2 points, and 13 of that team had played with their own club the day before. So, we see dual players playing Saturdays and Sundays, hurling and football. It's not the big issue that other people, and you'll find that during the close season, or often club, in years past, players have played Saturday evening and got out and played with their local soccer team on a Sunday morning. Players will play as long as the opportunity is given.
And the thing then of building more amalgamations, is it up to, there's obviously a political side to this as well. Let's call a spade a spade. We were to have another amalgamation from the north of the county. That fell down because clubs couldn't agree on it. Is it a mindset change that needs to happen? Is it a generational thing? Because as we mentioned, the 21 championship is going that way. So, a reality probably has to be accepted in some shape or form as well.
I think so. I think all the younger players and the traditional derbies that were there, you might go out and, there's no derby as lively as Navan O'Curry's. They would knock sparks off each other when they meet. But yet, no more than the club county do. The minute you come into senior training, you back the fellow beside you to the hilt. And that's the exact same as how it'll work in amalgamation football. I think that the players will demand it. And I think more and more clubs now are looking at who can we train with during the week. Instead of us having 8 and ye having 9, can we make it 17 or 18 or 20 together? And then you have a decent training session. And I think it just requires a little bit of, thinking, because traditionally clubs could manage away fine on their own. That's no longer the case in many, many instances.
Yeah, we've already touched on it though, Peter, the relegation thing, and I suppose Kilrush might be the ones feeling the most hard done by at the moment. They're in the relegation final, but they finished above the amalgamation in terms of championship victories, beat them on that first day. That probably has to be earned out a little bit as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was always my view that I couldn't see how you could relegate an amalgamation, and maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but I just always thought that from the start that that it would have to be a club that ends up getting relegated. Looking at Kilrush, when you come up from intermediate, the one thing you want to do is retain your status, and they did win their first game against amalgamation back in Kilkee, but haven't won since. The really big one was the one against Kilmahill, where you had two clubs that you would think would be fairly even, having come up the last 2 years from intermediate, but Kilmahill scored a lot of goals that day.
But I think you could see the value of Kilmahill's championship last year. The fact that they stayed last year, copper fastened there, and have gone on from there. And Kilrush will have to do the same thing. They have to try and keep their status this year, and they'll find next year they might be a little bit more.
But I suppose it's the wider issue. I suppose it's clubs to look at it and say it's Kilrush this year, it could be ourselves next year, it could be Kilmurray Bricken, it could be Clare, it could be anyone next year.
But the weakest club will go down, not the team. It's the weakest club. Remember, the 5 clubs came back down to make it a 12 club championship. The team, it doesn't have to stay at 12 teams. There's 12 clubs there, and if we want to get amalgamations into the championship, it has to become accepted by all. I'm sure some people will argue against it, but ultimately, if they're down intermediate, they'll still have that opportunity. And remember, in my time attending county board meetings, I've never seen an instance where a club has asked to go up that hasn't been allowed to do so.
I think it would be a massive blow for Kilrush if they do go down. But Corofin in that intermediate final, in that relegation final, they're going to turn it into a massive battle. Like it's maybe not so much about football in those kind of circumstances, or about ability, as it is about somehow just grinding out grinding out a result, you know. Like, it's not really about quality of football, it's about somehow getting the result, and whichever group can, I suppose, come together and just decide that they really, really want to stay a senior club will probably come through that, you know. And you often find that like, it's not a good situation to be in. Like, it's there's way more pressure on in the relegation final than there is on even a county semi-final, you know, where at least, you know, you've done well to get to the semi-final, and you're going to go out and attack it and try and really take it on. But relegation semi-final, relegation final is not something you want to be involved in.
Joe, can you see a situation where we may eventually have a Kerry Light Championship, in that we'll have a divisional championship and a club championship running?
Not in the immediate future. I don't think so, because the districts are not there. The numbers are not there in districts. You know, but
if you look at the 21 championship, would that not kind of say otherwise?
Well, they're amalgamations, and you know, that are playing. But I mean, you will have amalgamations coming forward. But in terms of having a district alone championship, it'll have to be a county championship, I think. But you will have a number of amalgamations competing in it.
But what I mean is, could you see a scenario where we eventually have a championship for amalgamations and then our traditional club championship without those amalgamations in it?
It's difficult to envisage in Clare, because of the amount of you have a number of clubs who have isolated players who play, you know, hurling with a different club, and then because we're a dual county, it's every second weekend. Now, every second weekend you have to run off your own intermediate championship and allow perhaps a team to compete in the senior championship. So it'll be very difficult, I think, to manage to intermarry the whole club championship as part of a county championship. I think the county championship is here to stay, but I think it'll be well worthwhile if we can get more amalgamations in. And the two criterion, in my opinion, that they have to satisfy is, do you accept you're playing 2 games? You mightn't be playing 2 games, but do you accept you may have to play 2 games a weekend? And secondly, are you likely to be competitive? Because if it comes to a situation where an amalgamation give a walkover, or decide they're not playing, or whatever reason, well, then they cannot be allowed in the following year.
Yeah.
You have to keep the senior championship sacrosanct, and that means keeping it very competitive.
We'll keep an eye on that. Obviously, will be. I'd imagine that the likes of convention in December, there'll be quite a healthy debate on that. Let's turn to ladies football, Joe, because obviously we have a massive weekend coming up with the Sheila Callan Memorial Weekend in Clare. That sevens competition that Michal Telty and the Callan family have run since Sheila's had passing a number of years ago. But what a fill up for Clare heading into that, and a beautiful tribute to Sheila as well by the Clare captain Orla Reedy when they won that intermediate title back in Doonbeg on Sunday afternoon. I don't think there's a scriptwriter, whether it was Coronation Street or Owen Ryan's favourite programme Fair City, that could have written the drama that unfolded. A last minute free from Megan Downs hitting the back stanchion of the net, and then Milton go down the field, get a penalty, and unfortunately it just goes wide of the post. Full time whistle blown. I mean, it was just a fabulous finish, wasn't it? It
was, and not only a fabulous finish, but a great day for ladies football. I thought, you know, full marks to Monica Callan and Kieran Harvey and everybody involved in Clare Ladies Football Board. It was a fabulous festival of football, and well, you know, in terms of Clare, obviously it couldn't have ended better, because not only did Clare win the intermediate title, 30 years since we won it before, and then the 25-year team was honoured straight after that, and then of course you had a thrilling county senior football final where the Banners' dominance was ended, this winning streak that they've been on for a long number of years. So, you know, it couldn't have been better. We were basked in sunshine, a big crowd, and real testament, and I think it mirrors what's happening on a national stage for ladies football when you see 56,000 people attending an All-Ireland football final. So, you know, a huge day, but full marks to the Clare girls. I have to give them a mention. They never give up. You got their noses ahead, and then at the date, probably the 2 players that were in contention for player of the match, the girl with the curtain wing forward with the
Amy Sexton,
the girl, and facing Quillen Morrissey in goal. There were 2 of them were simply outstanding.
She some outstanding saves, really
outstanding saves. But in fairness to Amy Sexton as well, she had run her legs off throughout the game and played such an intelligent game. And then the 2 of them end up facing each other, and Quillen would have stopped golf balls on Sunday. She was just in great form and deservedly won the accolade.
And then obviously we had Kilmihil taking down the Banner in a result and a scoreline that not a lot of people would have predicted. And I have to say it was a great advertisement actually for the Clare Champion, because after the game I was talking to a number of the Kilmihil players, and a couple of them were quick to remind me that they had read the verdict and the preview in the paper as well. And you know who you are, I'm not going to mention the names here on camera.
Who predicted that?
We'll move on. It was in the Champion.
And who predicted the winners in the intermediate final?
That would
You
have been,
went for Milton,
I
didn't
would,
you?
yeah.
You got both wrong.
You have to pick someone.
Yeah,
but you got both wrong.
That came down to a last minute penalty, so I can maybe be given some absolution on that one. But Kilmihil, Peter, what a result. I mean, 3 years of hurt in finals, a real pasting they took last year, and to turn around and do what they did in the manner that they did was just phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely delighted for them, for all the players involved, their managements, for the club. But having said all that, we'd have the height of respect for the manor as well. Like I always admired, and I still do admire the manor. Like, people are giving out about them, that they've players from here and there. Like, those players have played for the banner since they were children, and they've set the standard. And Kilmihil have now reached that standard, and they had to fight for not just this year, but for the last 3 or 4 years to get to that level. They knew that if they were going to win a senior championship, that they had to go very, very deep. Do you know what I mean? They had to go, like, really kind of put in massive work. Not just over a course of 60 minutes, but over the course of 3 or 4 years. And I'd say that the fact that they've beaten such a great team adds to it. Like, I mean, it's a great achievement anyway to win a senior championship, but for Kilmihil to beat the banner, I think really makes them one of the great champions. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. And I mean, they had some, really outstanding performances, and everyone would always look to Eilish Consign, Emer Consign coming back as well. And it just shows that no matter, like, they've both kind of went, further afield to different sports in terms of their careers. Australia for Eilish, and the rugby with Emer, but they're still from Kilmihil, and they had that jersey on and played with enormous. We know about their ability, but with enormous pride and heart and everything that you look for in a player, like representing their club. Lots of other great performances as well. I just think it was a great story, and as I said, like, really adding to it that they've beaten such a great team.
Without question. And when you see the players like Louise Hinchy and Eve Keane and these, Emma O'Driscoll, who've given such sterling service to it, and from the word go, Kilmihil were well up for this. Full marks to Kevin Callan and David O'Brien, everyone involved over there, David Anglum. I know they've been at the track in Clonrennan a lot this year. They really ran well, and they have just took the game by the scruff of the neck from the word go, and it's akin really to taking down the Dubs. What they've done, the banner have been such a dominant force, and now they go on and see them lift the trophy, and that trophy, I'm sure, with the intermediate trophy, will be back for Sheila's tournament this weekend, and it promises to be another festival. It's going to go on and go on. Yeah,
there was some great scenes from the village in Cree on Sunday evening, where obviously Clare were there celebrating with the My Body, and the Kilmihil team and supporters, and obviously passed back that way on their way from Dunbeg, and they stopped off to salute as well. So I mean, great to see, because all those girls would have maybe played on schools teams together to put a ball. I'd imagine 90% of them went to St Michael's, and they would have obviously met there as well. So to see that as a celebration as well was a lovely moment.
But and it's just what it's all about. And that Clare were in the position last year, beaten by a point in the last kick of the game as well, so they know what it's like for the field. So we have to give mention to Milltown, because they had their game plan to perfection, and they just happened to meet a goalkeeper that was on fire, because on another day they might have gone in 3 or 4 goals up at half time. And they were just playing such good football, but their day will come, because they've such talent in the squad, and Graham and Gerard Malone, they had them in great nick. So there's good times ahead for Milltown as well, but it's Clare's years this year, and of course Kilmihil are the story of the year in 2019.
So what you're saying is it wasn't completely outrageous to tip Milltown in that first game?
No, it wasn't completely outrageous, but wrong.
He just loves getting that last day.
It's very easy to be a Monday morning expert, isn't it?
Yeah. I wouldn't like to trawl back through the archives now of predictions on either of the three of us.
I obviously had gone for a Clare Kilmihil double.
Yeah, with who? You had to see that written down. Just to finish up on that point, Joe, the 25-year team, as you mentioned, obviously honoured as well. I mean, that just added, I suppose, to the whole sense of occasion, and you'd hope it's something the ladies board continue to do going forward, because there have been some fantastic champions obviously in the past.
Fantastic champions. There's a lovely exercise for the Clare Ladies Football Board to undertake, and I think 24 of the 28 girls that won that first senior championship in '94 were there for the Clare team. So this is a first senior championship for Kilmihil. In 25 years time, how many will we be talking about? Will come back hopefully to take to accept the accolade and maybe go on and win multiple championships. Clare did that. They dominated there. They had a great rivalry with Fergus Rovers in the 90s. And it was great to see all the players back, and it added to the whole occasion because it quite simply was a superb advertisement for ladies football back in Doonbeg on Sunday, and full marks to Doonbeg Ladies Football Club, who obviously worked hard at getting the whole event ready.
Yeah, and obviously Edel Conway was a central part of that as well, and Edel chipped in on the field Friday evening as well with 2 goals as Doonbeg won that junior title, so a good weekend for the Magpies all round. Time has caught up with us here at the Champion Sport Chat podcast, so we have to leave it for this week. Just for the paper, in terms of sport, what you can expect on Thursday, all the colour and reaction from that great day in Doonbeg on Sunday. We're also looking ahead to a massive weekend of hurling action as well, semi-finals down for decision in the senior and intermediate. We'll be hearing from all those clubs. Camogie semi-finals as well, and just to finish up, I'll let you know if you want to watch back any of the action from those senior and intermediate ladies football finals on Sunday afternoon, they're on the Clare Champion Facebook page, both in terms of a little highlights package, or if you want to watch back the full game and see just how wrong I was with those predictions, you can do that as well. For myself, Peter and Joe, thanks very much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again next week.